I'm going to tell you a story about how I lost tens of thousands of dollars and completely screwed myself over because I simply lacked the foresight when I started my business. And that's why this episode is going to be called Begin with the End in Mind. And it's not just a cute saying, it's not just a cute phrase about mindset and, oh, you need to know where you're going to get there. It is that, but there is a very technical aspect to this, which I'm going to get into. And there's a very good reason why you should. And for me, the realization came with a very simple error that I had made and just put off again and again, and I kept prolonging to the point where I just couldn't anymore. And for me, this was when I started my business. If you're not an Australian, basically we have a few different entities for like a business. So you can either be a sole trader, which is like, you are just the person is the business. Any money that comes through the quote business is just your money. You've also got a proprietary limited, which is like an LLC for an American. This separates the business from you personally, so it mitigates liability. It also protects your personal assets because it's no longer linked to your business and your operations. And then you've also got trusts and all that stuff, and you can get complicated with it, and you can have a company that's owned by a trust. You can have all sorts of stuff. So anyway, I started, like most people, as a sole trader. And at a certain point, when your business grows, you need to switch over to a proprietary limited at the very least. And I always thought I'll just keep doing my thing. I'll grow my business. I'll keep getting more customers. I'll keep doing what I know best. And at a certain point, my accountant will pull me aside and, take me into the back room and tell me the secrets of the game and say that this is where you set up a company and all the rest. Anyway, years went by and that never happened. My accountant never had a conversation with me about creating a company or a trust or what comes with that or why I should or shouldn't. And I got to a point where I'm doing nearly $1.5 million a year in revenue and I'm still a sole trader. Now, it's very ironic having a business structure as a sole trader, sole meaning one and trader referring to the person. So one person operation essentially, yet I had like 30 staff. So here I am, sole trader, 30 employees, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And my accountant was not offering any input or advice. And I was super naive in thinking that my accountant would kind of just hold my hand the whole way through. And at each part of the journey, they would talk to me and guide me to the next step. But that's not what happened. And I came to the realization that, an accountant is just a government agent. They'll do whatever you ask them to within the confines of the law, essentially, depending on what accountant you go to. But an accountant isn't going to go out of his or her way to tell you what they think you should do unsolicited. And, I was very naive in thinking that I would just keep growing my business and my accountant would just tell me what the next best step was. So don't be like me. Take control and take autonomy over your own finances, especially in your business, and seek out information and blah, blah, blah. And then go to your accountant once you've aggregated the information and you know the next best step and have that conversation with them. But don't do what I did and expect them to do all the work for you. You need to take that initiative and learn from my own mistake. But anyway, long story short, I went way too long as a sole trader entity. And I got to a point where everyone I spoke to about business, they were like, oh, you're doing great and all that. And then I would get to the point where I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm doing all this revenue and I have all these staff and I'm still a sole trader. And then their jaws would just hit the floor. They're like, what are you doing? Even people that know nothing about finance, they're like, what the hell are you doing? So I eventually got in touch with a different accountant, someone who I thought was more aligned with the kind of trajectory that I was on and the industry that I was in. And I had a good chat with him. And what he told me was that because I'd waited so long and my business had grown into this valuable asset, right? I started the business with $0 and it was now worth in the ballpark of $500,000 to $1 million. If I then roll that over into a company, so go from a sole trader to a company, remember that these are two separate entities. So my business or at the time as a sole trader would be seen as a completely different business if it became a proprietary limited, even if it was the same people, same name, same customers, same everything, because they're two separate taxable entities. So he told me that if I do this now, if I roll my sole trader business into a proprietary limited, an actual company, then there was potentially going to be a capital gains event. So I would need to pay capital gains on between $500,000 and $1 million because it started at zero and it was now worth that amount. And I felt my heart sink. And like straight away, all that was going through my mind was, have I just wasted the last 4 years of my life building this business to then lose every dollar I made along the way? Thankfully, it wasn't that bad. Thankfully, I did not have to pay capital gains tax on $1 million, but there was also another side of that. So you also have to pay stamp duty in a lot of cases. If you roll a a sole trader business into a company, there can be stamp duty there. So long story short, I lost a lot of money when I created my company structure because I had to bounce between consults with the accountant and lawyer due to how complex my business had become to first figure out the best course of action for my business in order to reduce that capital gains liability and stamp duty and all that other stuff, which in itself costs thousands of dollars just for those appointments with the lawyer and accountant. And then I had to pay the fees associated with rolling over into a company because I waited so long. So I had to cough up even more money. In total, it was over $20,000, and it was completely unavoidable had I just begun with the end in mind, or at the very least, been a little bit more proactive and maybe listened to a few people around me and just done a little bit more Googling and been less naive and actually had my head screwed on right. But anyway, it definitely hurt, but it taught me a good lesson. So nothing changed besides the entity that my business was in. And because of that, I had to pay a lot of money because I did not have the foresight when I started my business and I lacked the knowledge. And that's all it can be sometimes. If you lack a little bit of knowledge in a certain area of business, it can cost you a lot of money, it can cost you a lot of time, and it can cost you a lot of energy. So don't make that mistake. Begin with the end in mind, not just on a financial front, but even from a brand perspective. I made the same mistake when I started my business in terms of brand. I didn't know exactly what I wanted. I didn't know what type of customer I wanted to serve. I didn't know what industry I was going to be in. What niche I was going to be in within my industry. So when I started the business, I was enhanced home cleaning because I thought that that's all the business was going to be. I didn't really think much about it. I was like, house cleaning seems like an easy business to get into. Let's do that. So called myself enhanced home cleaning. I was like, I'm going to go after the rich areas, the big mansions, because surely they're going to have the most money, right? Wrong. I did letterbox drops in all these big neighborhoods, these fancy homes. Not a single person got back to me. And so I'm like, well, I've gotten this far. Even though I'm making no money, I've got all these flyers. I may as well just keep pushing. I went into some of the regular, like middle class areas with the young families, dual income, that sort of thing. So going from like $2+ million home areas to now the $500,000 to $750K range, just to give you an idea. And immediately I got responses. I got my first customer from these areas, and that immediately shifted my perspective. And I was like, I had it all wrong. I did not know. I did not have any idea what I was getting myself into. And so I humbled myself on that day. I was like, I'm not going to act like I know everything. I'm going to really have a think about where I want to take the business. And then that led me to the next issue. I started to get commercial clients while still being called enhanced home cleaning. And again, it was just because I lacked foresight from the beginning. I hadn't really thought big picture. I hadn't really thought about A, what I wanted, and B, what was possible. I had never even thought about going into commercial. It seemed so big and daunting and scary that I just never even gave it the time of day. And then I got to that point and I shot myself in the foot once again because I had branded my business in such a way. And then I had to rebrand all my stationery, my shirts. I had to get new shirts made because I changed the name from enhanced home cleaning to enhanced cleaning services. And then later on, I ended up changing the name from enhanced cleaning services to enhanced cleaning, which some of you will know. I've spoken about this a few times, but just really, really simple stuff. And, a lot of people are going to make these errors or mistakes, but it is part of the journey. You are going to make mistakes. There's no way around that. But my aim here is to hopefully help you minimize the amount of mistakes that you're going to make. But don't get too disheartened if you do make these mistakes, even big or small, because they do teach valuable lessons. And even if it is a short-term monetary or time setback, you're setting yourself up for a better long-term success. So yeah, same thing with rolling over from a sole trader into a company. The bigger you get and the further along in the journey you get, the harder it is to make changes. If you go from a sole trader to a company like I did after $1 to $1.5 million in revenue and all that growth, you then have to let all of your customers know that you've changed. You then have to issue new employment contracts to all of your staff. You have to pay out your full-time staff with all of their leave loading, because you can't carry that leave loading over to a new entity, over to a company. So all these different things, I lost a lot of money, a lot of time, because I simply didn't do it when I started. I had to I had a new ABN, so I had to change my ABN on everything. I had to update the website, all these things, because I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. So, if you're at that stage where you're realizing that things are changing, don't be worried about it. Don't fret. It's part of the process. My aim is just to hopefully maybe wake you up a little bit and open your mind to new possibilities and ideas and mitigate your liability, because I don't want you to have to spend thousands and upon thousands of dollars like I did. It's not nice. If I can go through it so other people don't have to, then that's great. But yeah, it's also good to remember this. I think I read this in a book by Alex Hormozy or something. I think he got it from somewhere else, but he said, at every stage in the entrepreneurial journey, you have to be comfortable with losing a certain amount of money relative to income. So for example, if you want to make $1,000, you have to lose $100. You have to be comfortable with foregoing $100. So for me, when I started, when I made my first $1,000, I lost $100 in flyers, in printing costs to print out, 100, 200 flyers that I ran around different neighborhoods handing these out to get nothing. But then I found some success with flyers in a different area and I made my first $1,000. Had to lose $100 to get there, but I made it in the end. And then if you want to go to $10,000, you have to be comfortable with losing $1,000. So same thing. I wasted a lot of money on paid Facebook ads and Google ads and buying the wrong suppliers that I didn't even end up using and all these different things. And so I lost more money, got a little bit bummed out about it, because at that point, $1,000 is a lot of money. But then I made $10,000. And so same thing, making your first $100,000, you've got to be comfortable with losing $10,000. And if you want to get to the big million, you have to be comfortable with the idea of losing $100,000, which I have more than done that. I've lost a lot more than $100,000 on the way to $1 million. And, it's not nice when it's happening, but in hindsight, you realize that it all worked out and everything happens for a reason, and you just have to trust the process. But again, my goal is for you to not have to go through as much financial hardship as I have due to my own negligence. I'm not saying that I've had it tough. I'm just saying that I've had it tougher than what I had to be, because I simply didn't know the right things. So even if you're further along the journey, even if you haven't just started, there is still some solace in this if you know that you haven't planned ahead, if you haven't planned with the end in mind, which I certainly didn't when I started. But anyway, there is some solace in that. And that is, you can begin with the end in mind at any point. It sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but let this be day one for you. Let this be day one of your new business journey, where you really map things out, where you really think ahead and you get a good grasp of what you want from this business and what you want in your own life. So a few actionable steps that I can give for you just to help you out, no matter if you're starting out or if you've already started. We can work backwards, so don't worry about that. Number one, and this is kind of going back to what I just talked about, you need to choose the right business structure from day one. So ask yourself, do I want to stay a sole trader, or do I plan to scale into a proprietary limited? Do I need to worry about protecting assets? Do I need to make sure that I'm safe from lawsuits? Am I at a high risk for whatever it may be? Just have a clear idea of that. Have a think about that. Think about if you're married, if you have a husband or a wife, how would that affect them? What's their current financial situation? What's their current career? Are they in a business too? Do you maybe need a discretionary trust setup where you can distribute funds throughout your family in order to minimize or mitigate tax? Think about these things and then talk to an accountant, but make sure you have a good understanding of how these business structures work. You don't need to fully understand it, but at least have a little bit more knowledge than the average person, just so you can engage in a conversation with an accountant and then figure out the next best steps for you, whether you're starting or you're already a little bit ahead in the journey. So speak to an accountant about that, but make sure you don't go in blind. Okay, so number 2, you want to define your business model and niche early. Like again, I spoke about how I didn't necessarily do that properly from the get-go. I just had an idea of how I could make some money, but I didn't have a really deep think and project the road ahead. So ask yourself again, what kind of cleaning business am I building? Am I building residential, commercial, Airbnb, vacate cleaning, bond cleans, or builders cleans, or what is it? And this matters because a clear niche makes it easier to price your services, market effectively, and scale without chaos. And again, even if you've already started, even if you're a year or 2 or 3 years in, you can still niche now. You can still pivot into a niche. You can keep your existing business, but you can then focus all of your future time, money, and energy into that niche. And so choose one primary service and become known for it before expanding into other areas. After about a year of trading and just saying yes to every job that came my way, I was a jack of all trades doing oven cleans, window cleans, bond cleans, post-bill cleans, reno cleans, you name it. After about a year of doing that, I finally said, no, I just want to do one thing, get really good at it, and be the go-to person for that. And so that was subscription-based, detailed home cleaning. That was my niche. And like I said, even a year in, I decided from that day on that was going to be my day one. And so from that day, I planned ahead. I begun with the end in mind. And for me, that was my niche. It's what I built my business around. And then later on, I ventured into other areas like commercial, which we're now focusing a lot more of our efforts into. So yeah, number 3, you want to plan for scaling, even if you're small right now, even if you have small dreams, even if you don't think that you want to go far, or even if you don't want to take it far, ask yourself again, if I had to double my workload tomorrow, would my business break? Or if you're starting out, just ask yourself, what life do I want to live? What do I want this business to bring me in my own personal life? Because you are an extension of your business. So think about that. So you can do some simple things. You can set up some simple systems, get yourself some softwares like Xero and Jobber and Connect Team and all these things. And you can set up some repeatable processes and SOPs like client onboarding processes. You can have a booking system, all these things just to make things a little bit easier to scale. Even if you don't plan to go massive, it will still make life that little bit easier for you to run the business. Okay. And number 4, you want to build a strong hiring and training process early. Again, this is for if you want to grow the business. Even if you don't, it's good to just have a think about this because our minds often change as we go throughout this journey. So ask yourself, what does my ideal employee look like and how will I find and keep them? So this is great if you're already a little bit further along in the business and you're maybe at that hiring stage, or you have hired and you're still not really sure what you want to do. Ask yourself that question. What does my ideal employee look like? How will I find them and how will I keep them? Really, really important question to ask. And this matters because hiring reactively, just looking at people's availability instead of attitude and value alignment and work ethic and all this stuff, it leads to high turnover and operational headaches. So you want to avoid that. Okay. So you can define your dream employee avatar, which I think I've talked about in some previous podcasts. There might be something on that. You can standardize your training so that every cleaner provides consistent service, and you can plan for retention by offering a good work environment and culture, having those core pillars of the business, like those values, the vision, and the mission statement, and having some fun, having Employee of the Month awards and having monthly challenges like we run in our business. All of this stuff is going to help retain employees and just boost morale and make people really want to be there. Okay, number 5, you want to think about the end goal. So really think about the end itself. What does the end of the business look like for you? Even if you've just started, what do you one day want to do with the business? Are you building the business to sell it? Are you building to franchise or license it? Are you building to automate it so that you can remove yourself from it and have it as like a semi-passive income source for yourself? Or are you just building this to give yourself a job? You just want to own a good, consistent job where you don't have to answer to a boss. Okay, what is that going to look like for you? And once you define that end goal for yourself, then you can begin to work backwards from the end. Okay, now what are all the things that I have to do to get to this end point? If I want to franchise, well, that means I have to have all of these processes and systems hashed out, and I need to be able to take anyone off the street who knows nothing about me or my business and have them run basically a clone of my business by just following a bunch of steps and modules and processes, right? Very different to like if you just want to build yourself a job essentially, or if you just want to automate the business for yourself. It's going to look very different, and the actionable steps that you are going to have to take are going to look different based on the end goal for you. So you can create systems early on so that the business can run without you, or if you want to take it in a different direction, you can create processes and systems that are molded around that. You need to keep clean financial records, and this is really important because a business can't show profitability. A business that can't show profitability can't really be sold later. It's hard to sell a business if you can't prove where the money's coming from and where the value lies. And even if you don't sell it, you don't really know how your finances are tracking. So you can't project for the future. You can't plan ahead. You can't plan your own personal finances because you have no idea where your business is even standing in that. So really important that you keep clean financial records as well. And also design a brand that has long-term value, okay? Not just a personal brand that's tied to you. This is really important as well. So yeah, number 6, network and learn from those who've done it before you. So A+ for you. Good job. You're doing it right now. You're listening to a podcast from a guy who's maybe further along the journey than you. I don't know where you're at, but you're doing that well. So pat on the back for that. But you just want to ask yourself, who can I learn from to shortcut my mistakes? If you can find a cleaning business owner in your area, or maybe in a different city or state or even country altogether. I learned from someone who lives in America. So there is really no limits on this. Just ask yourself that. Who can I learn from to shortcut my mistakes? It doesn't mean you're going to make no mistakes. It doesn't mean it's going to eliminate the chance of any mistakes ever happening, but it will minimize those mistakes and shortcut your way to success, which is great. Okay, so find people that you can learn from. Find a mentor if you can. That's always great. It's really important that you find someone that aligns with your values and your mindset. Just make sure that you keep an open mind when you talk to a mentor, because oftentimes, and as I've learned, they're going to open your mind to ideas that maybe you didn't even think were a possibility, or maybe it goes against what you believe in, but maybe, just maybe, it can actually take your business in a completely new and great direction for you. So just keep an open mind and remember that getting uncomfortable and getting out of your comfort zone is a big driver in one's success. So some things you can do there is, join groups like Booked Out Cleaners, our school community. That's one way. You can just reach out to local people in your area or in other cities, or maybe someone that you follow on Instagram who doesn't even have to be a cleaning business. You can talk to a guy who has a landscaping business, just someone that is willing to kind of take you under their wing and show you the ropes, show you how the game's played, because that can really shortcut your way to success. And I believe that doing this with a mentor is 100 times better than doing it without one. I've got a mentor now. I had a mentor when I started. Can't imagine doing it without one. Okay. So learn from other business owners who have successfully scaled or gotten to where you want to be, and use their knowledge and leverage that wisdom to shortcut your way to success. Okay. And number 7, similar to number 5, set a clear financial plan. Ask yourself, what do I need to charge to be profitable and sustainable based on the outcomes that I want to achieve? If I want to scale this business, if I want to hire staff, what do I need to charge to be profitable and sustainable? And in order to answer that question, you need to know what your costs are. So maybe you need to work backwards even more. Maybe you need to figure out how much money you really make at the moment. And then from there, you can figure out how much money you need to be making or you want to be making, and then what you need to charge to get there. Okay. Make sure that you're properly separating your personal and business finances, even if you are a sole trader, and technically it's okay for you to bundle all that up. It just makes it a massive bookkeeping and accounting headache. So just separate them. Make sure you know your break-even point so that every dollar above that is profit and any dollar below that is a loss. Okay. And plan for profitability, not just survival. Okay. So set income goals and track them monthly, track them weekly, track them quarterly. because I know a lot of the time people go into this business to just make a quick buck or to make ends meet. But it's really important that we get rid of that survivor mindset and move into like an abundance mindset, into a killer mindset. You know what I mean? We need to build a business with that prosperity mindset, that profitability mindset. You can go a lot deeper than that. We could honestly talk about this for hours. We can get super, super specific, but those 7 talking points, those 7 different areas of the business, if you just ask yourself those questions, if you lay out some action steps, and if you have a really good think about it, that'll help you avoid a lot of the common pitfalls with building and growing and scaling a profitable business. So just remember that thinking ahead isn't this cute phrase that we say. It's not like manifesting your future. It's not like manifesting success. It's a practical solution to avoiding mistakes, to avoiding monetary loss, and avoiding headache, so that you can make your way to that utopia, that North Star, that success, whatever that may look like for you, in a much more efficient and less resistant way. You know, we're essentially just taking the path of least resistance. That's all it is. So don't make the mistakes I've done. Make sure you plan ahead. Even if you've started already, make this your day one. Make this day one of your new business. Okay. And if you haven't started yet, perfect. You've come into this and you've listened to this episode at the perfect time. Today is your day one. Begin with the end in mind. Ask yourself these questions. Have a really, really good think about where you want to take the business, and be proactive. Don't be reactive like I've been. It's good to be reactive sometimes. It's good to deal with things as they come, because it elevates your survival instincts. It builds your intuition. But a lot of the time, we have to remember that we are new to this for the most part. A lot of us are. This is our first business, and so we're naive, and we need help, and we need to not only just ask for help, but we need to know what we need help with before we can actually consult the right people for the right advice. Like I gave that example with the accountant. I just expected the accountant to do everything for me, and that was naive of me, and that cost me a lot of money a few years later. So don't do that. Begin with the end in mind. Even if you've already started, begin now. Start today. Make this your day one. I'm going to end this episode with a quote from my OG mentor, Mal Emery, who's now retired. He's the mentor I had when I first started my business. Really, really smart guy, really rich as well. So great guy to learn from. He was also a very blunt and brazen man. So one quote he always used to say that I found funny and I guess memorable, which is why I remember it today, was, business is hard enough already. It's even harder if you're an idiot. So don't be an idiot. Yeah, he had a lot of great quotes like that. Another quote of his was, and this is actually, I find it to be quite a profound quote, even though again it's very blunt. He used to say, "I've got no problem with you being broke, but I do have a problem with you staying broke." That always stuck with me, and I really like that. You know, what he's saying is, I've got no issue with the situation you're in and the circumstances that are upon you, but with the abundance of information out there, with all the opportunity out there, you have no excuse if you stay that way, because you are the catalyst for your own success. And if you don't help yourself, no one's going to help you. So yeah, he was a very funny guy, but he taught me a lot of what I know today. Very old school mentor. That's my preference. You know, again, going back to mentors, you need to find someone that aligns with you and that you get along with and that you can resonate with. For me, it was like an old school business principles guy. Like he taught me about the foundational principles of business. He talked about direct marketing as opposed to social media stuff. He was just very, very old school, and I found that resonated with me and really worked for me. But for you, it may be completely different. Maybe you want someone who is a little bit more like sensitive emotionally and not so blunt and brazen, and maybe you want to go down a different route. But anyway, that's the importance of finding the right mentor. But yeah, business is hard enough as is. It's even harder if you're an idiot. So don't be an idiot. Begin with the end in mind. Learn from my mistakes and the mistakes of many other business owners before me. and before you. And with that being said, thank you for listening to another episode of Self Made. I hope you found this insightful and valuable, and I hope to speak to you again next week. Bye for now.